Hello, Helene. It's Daniel Davis here. Thank you so much for reaching out to me and giving me an opportunity to speak about my experience with Michael Landon. When I decided to move from New York to Los Angeles and try to begin working in television, Highway to Heaven was my first audition and my first job. My agent called and said, "You have an audition for Highway to Heaven. It's a new show with Michael Landon. And you will be going to the Sony lot and auditioning for him on the set." I was too naive at that point to know that that was an unusual experience. Most of the time, I later learned, you go to a room where there's a hallway full of actors waiting to audition for the casting director. But no, Michael saw people directly because he was not only the star, but he was the director and the writer and the producer. So he did it all himself. So I had a rental car. I drove to the Sony studios in Culver City, which used to be MGM. And I mean, just to walk on that lot was, I was starry-eyed because it's where, the great movies of the 30s and 40s and onwards have been made. And there I was, this little kid from Arkansas walking down the streets of MGM. Well, Sony now, but Sony then. I don't know what it is now. Anyway, I go and I'm met outside of the studio where I was told to go by the casting director. And she said, "Come with me. Michael will be finished shooting in a moment." And so I waited a few minutes and out he came. Now, this was a big thrill for me because all through college, my three buddies and I would get together every Sunday night. We'd cook a meal and we'd sit down and we'd watch Bonanza together. And so I was standing there in front of Little Joe. And I was so thrilled and so nervous. I really was nervous. I thought, wow, I'm really something. Anyway, he said, "We can't go on the set because they're working right now. There's no place for us to really do it, but there's a utility closet right there. You want to do that? We want to audition." So we went into a utility closet with the casting director, this lovely woman, and Michael Landon and myself. And he hopped up on a counter that held a lot of drawers full of tools. I don't know what it was. And he said, "So have you read the script?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Let's go." So I read the scene with the casting lady. And when we finished it, he said, I want you to do it. I want you to play this part." And I was like, "Really? Are you kidding?" He said, "No, I'm not kidding." I said, "This is my first audition in town and you're offering me a job right off the bat. Wow." He said, "Yeah, well, it's good. It was a good read, very good read." And I said, "Well, thanks." And then I brought up the fact that my father had always maintained that we were distantly related to Dan Blocker, who played Hoss on Bonanza. And he said, "How's that?" And I said, "Well, his middle name was," and Michael jumped in and said, "Davis, and that's your name." And I said, "Yes. His name was Daniel Davis Blocker." And we've always thought, although we've never been able to prove it, that we're cousins. Anyway, that impressed him. And the fact that I had very long hair. He said, "I like your hair." He said, "It's like mine." I said, "Yeah, I keep my hair long because it's always easier to cut it than to grow it. And I play a lot of period parts and things." And he said, "Well, it's great. It looks good." So this went very well. He said, "So that's it. I got to get back to work. I'll see you in a couple of weeks." So the next thing I knew, I was flying to Arizona to a set. There's a town, the name goes out of my mind, but it's a Western set where they've made movies from John Ford right up through Gunsmoke. They've made Westerns there. And we rehearsed a scene. It was the scene where you saw the episode where I was tossing a ball or a wad of paper or something into a wastebasket and was playing a game with the kids, with my children that I'd brought to the set, my TV children. And I couldn't do it. I could never hit it. I was never good at sports, basketball or anything. And so I heard him say to the cameraman, "Just keep rolling until he does it." And so we kept the camera rolling, and a prop guy would run and grab it every time I missed. He'd grab the ball and bring it to me, and I'd try again. On about the 15th try, I think, I finally got it, and everybody on the set applauded, but they were supposed to anyway, so it worked out fine. I said, "Sorry, Michael, I'm just lousy at this kind of thing." And he said, "Whenever you're doing something like that, just aim for the back of the rim." And I said, oh, could I try it one more time? And he said, yeah, do it, roll. And so I aimed for the back of the rim and it went right in. Big applause. Everybody was very happy. But I meant to tell you that before I started the scene, I went to, get in, we did the rehearsal and I went and I got into costume, my little Western outfit, supposed to ride in on my horse. You saw the scene, so you know what I'm talking about. And Michael, right before we started, he walked over and he had a hat in his hands and he handed me the hat. He said, wear this, please. And I said, oh, this looks familiar. He said, yeah, it's my hat. It's my hat from Little House. And I said, oh, great, this is wonderful. I hope it fits. He said, it'll fit. So I put it on and it fit like a glove. We both have big heads. And so I wore this hat and we'd done a take or two, I was thinking, maybe this character is maybe very personal for Michael. Because it's about a guy who's a TV star, a Western star, and he has kids that because of his schedule and work, he's not with them very much. And that was the basis for the character that I was playing. And I thought, this is a very personal episode for Michael. And realizing, of course, that he had written that particular script. And so I felt like I have to really do a good job now because this is autobiographical for Michael. So anyway, we did that. We did all of it. And we flew back to LA and we were on a soundstage filming the rest of it, the house where I was supposed to live with the kids. And the final scene, it was a scene between me and Bobby Jacoby, who played my son, and Emily Multy, who played the daughter. And they were both wonderful child actors and really professional and they were just excellent, knew how to do it. They really knew. They knew what they were doing. They've both gone on to have careers in television and film and very talented. In fact, I ran into Emily a few years ago and she came up to me and she said, Mr. Davis, I'm Emily Multy. And I said, hello. She said, I played your daughter on Highway to Heaven. And she was a grown woman. They're both in their 40s now, which shows you how old I am, as if the gray weren't enough. At any rate, had a little reunion with them. Anyway, it was the scene between the little boy and I was not in the house. It was in the barroom set that was still in in Arizona. I forgot. I got it all out of whack here, but never mind. Very emotional scene where we were both very emotional. Our characters got very emotional in the scene because I'm trying to reconcile with my child. And as the scene was coming to an end, I started to cry. And we finished the scene, and I hugged the boy. And I heard Michael whisper to the cameraman, keep rolling. Instead of saying cut, he said, keep rolling. He said, Daniel, right where you are right now, start the scene over again. And I, without questioning him, I just pulled back to my original position and started the scene, which meant that I was emotional and in tears really from the beginning of the scene right through to the end. And when we finished it, going through the second time, it was cut, print, thank you. That was great. He knew exactly how and when to speak up as a director. He's the kind of director that I've come to really be fond of, the kind of director who works off of what the actors are doing. Doesn't have it set in his mind how it should be or how it ought to be. He wants it to be real and authentic, and he sees something happening and he embellishes it, he uses it, he adjusts it, give you a little note. He was wonderful at it, but he'd been doing it forever. And here's a great story that I'll finish up with about Michael, just to show you what a generous, kind soul he was. One of the nicest men I've ever met in my life. And I've worked with some wonderful people over the years, but there's a short list of people who were just brilliant. They really knew what it meant to be number one on the call sheet, which is something that we say in the business about, the call sheets, the characters are numbered. And the number one guy is the guy that everybody looks to for guidance and leadership. And Michael was in a triple position, being the star, the writer, the director. But he knew how to be number one on the call sheet, which is not everybody does. He, Peter Falk, when I did Columbo, Angela Lansbury, when I did Murder, She Wrote. These are people who are pros down to the ground, and not only that, they're really nice people. They're talented and they're brilliant. But Michael had worked with the same crew since Bonanza. He worked with these people on Bonanza, all of the grips, the electricians, the lighting people, the sound people, this boom operators, the clap boy, everybody had been with him since Bonanza. And then when he did Little House on the Prairie, he brought them all back to work with him again. And then you saw the final episode of Little House, you know that he blew up the Little House. Victor French told me that it was a symbolic gesture on Michael's part, that he never intended to return to television after finishing that, because he'd been on television almost his entire adult life and was just tired. The schedules are grueling, and he hadn't spent that much time with his own children and so forth and so on. But about, maybe, I don't know exactly the timeline on this, you'd have to look it up, from the finish date of Little House to the start date of Highway to Heaven happened because, this was from Victor French telling me this, that the producer called Michael and said, Michael, you know, all those crew people, they've worked with you on everything, and you're known in the business, you can do anything you want to, but they are not known. They have 2 credits on their resumes, Little House and Bonanza. They can't get work, and they're all out of work, and they have been ever since Little House ended. Within a week, Michael had written the pilot for Highway to Heaven to put those people back to work. I get emotional talking about that moment because it just shows you the kind of man he was. And I know you've got a YouTube site dedicated to him. You couldn't be dedicated to a sweeter, nicer, more talented, more generous human being, and taken from us far too soon. So I hope that helps you make some sense for you. Okay, bye.